I
Yeah.
I thought about like the way I came up, and my the guy that raised me, he was with my mom for 15 years. He's doing life in prison without parole for murder, right?
Oh, no shit. Yeah.
And I remember I was in the joint with him in 2006. And I remember we were walking the yard, and he was talking about how he broke into this old lady's house and like punched her in the head and like stole. And he was like, I could see joy in his eyes behind doing this heinous thing.
Yeah.
And I just remember being sick to my stomach and thinking, like, I was raised by this person, but I'm not like this person.
Yeah.
So, like, I think your environment, it plays a part a little bit, but I mean, ultimately, we either have a moral compass or we don't.
Yeah, 100%. And that was so real quick, guys. Anybody that's tuning in, we're back with another topic discussion on the jungle. I got with me Gary Badley. You're doing marketing now for Attain Behavioral Health, correct?
Yeah,
Uh,
outreach, and business development. Yes, sir.
okay, which just explain real briefly what Attain is and what they do. Give them a quick plug.
Attain Behavioral Health is a PHP, IOP counseling, a substance use disorder counseling program that serves women in the Northeast Ohio region. And we also have a preferred housing provider we work with, Renewed Housing, that provides housing for women only. We used to do men and women counseling, but we found that women seem to heal better when they have an environment that's like exclusive to them.
Yeah.
So we switched over to women only.
Right on. And then, guys, anybody that's been tuning in recently, you all know my good friend Tyler Griffith owns his own tree company. He is off taking some much needed R&R time over the last couple weeks. That boy's a worker. So he decided to hop on. We're just gonna talk about nature versus nurture today. Real quick, I want to thank anybody that's tuning in, checking us out. Again, if you don't mind, hop over to the YouTube page. The link will be in the description after the live video is over. It's the Jungle Podcast on YouTube. You can hop on Spotify. We're on Apple. We're on Podbean. Any platform, we're on there. Like, subscribe, comment. That way, it'll just boost us in the ratings, get our message out there. Channel's not monetized. Again, that's not the purpose of it. We just want to talk about cool shit in recovery. Whether your recovery is being a convicted felon, drugs, whatever, mental health, it is what it is. So again, today we're just going to touch base on nature versus nurture. There's the long stand. I'm just going to read this off of Wikipedia real quick. It's based just to give everybody an idea of what we're getting into. Nature versus nurture. It's a long-standing debate in biology and society about the relative influence on human beings and their genetic inheritance, and the environmental conditions of their development. So there's been a debate over the years, can somebody's environment kind of sway them outside of what their DNA, how they're built, how they're, you know what I mean? I wanted to have these two guys on. We'll talk about it a little bit. I'm a nature wins kind of guy, and Gary was kind of touching base on an experience he had with his biological father before, right when we started the cast. And my wife and I had a debate last night about this going up to Cleveland. And I'm a firm believer. I was raised in a household where there was a lot of love. My mom was a great provider. My dad was a great provider. My mom showed me all the love in the world, gave me all the chances. And I still, ended up becoming a drug addict. And my wife and I talked last night, and I've always been, my dad was a very against the grain individual. He did shit his way. He didn't give a fuck what you thought. He didn't care. If it meant breaking rules because he felt he could do it, he was doing it. He was a very successful rule breaker, where I was not the first 20 years of my life. But, I think inherently that's part of my DNA. You know what I mean? I think I was kind of born that way. I think most people are born that way. And while I think the whole nurture portion of it can play a role in kind of like curbing the edges, or maybe swaying you a little bit in a certain direction, I think at the end of the day, you are who you are. Gary, you were talking about, you had your dad that you were locked up with in prison. Anybody that now
that was my stepdad.
Or your stepdad.
Yeah. So there's kind of based off what you're talking about, that'd be like the nurture thing. I didn't really have nurture. You know what I mean? I wasn't like nurtured. I grew up in like a hostile environment with that dude. Now, my biological father, who was also like a rule breaker, kind of mischievous kind of dude, but he also had a good heart. I didn't even really know that guy, but for some reason, I ended up being more like him than the environment I was raised in.
Okay.
So
So
like,
you're talking, you ended up being more like your bio dad.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I mean, I'd get in trouble and I would do some stuff, but at the same time, like I wasn't like a heartless person like my stepdad seems to be, and
Yeah.
I wasn't even raised by my biological father, but I still inherited, you know, the like I said, moral compass that he had compared to my stepdad, who would beat up old ladies and steal their medications and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, that's I don't know, man. I think, like I said, I think over time, the nurture part of things, obviously. See, but I'm kind of at like a hit or miss also, because I'm talking about both of my parents. I was never really raised by anybody else except my parents. I'll use my wife as an example, and this is what we were talking about last night. She's adopted, so she had, and you could probably relate to this. I think Ty. Well, no, Ty, you have your parents are still together. But Mary has a bio dad and a bio mom, and then she has her adopted parents. So she was raised, I mean, basically like 2 days after she was adopted or born, she was with her adopted parents. And she met her bio mom and dad. It was about when she was 22. And so after her and I got together, I had an opportunity to meet her biological mom and dad. And I'll tell you, she is similar to her adopted parents, because she was raised with them, but also at 22 years old. Then when I was 30 years old and I met her, so about 8-9 years later, after she met her mom and dad, and I had the opportunity to meet her biological mom and dad, she exhibits a lot of the fucking same traits as her biological mom and dad.
That's
It's
where the
almost,
argument started.
what's that?
And that's where the argument started.
That's where the argument. No, it really did. That's where the argument started. No, but, and here comes the nurture part of it, because her biological parents raised her with certain morals, certain values, and so when she met her or her adopted parents raised her with certain morals and values. So when she met Stephanie and Marty, there was a lot of things she didn't like. Like I have no, we're kind of on the same page. Stephanie, God rest her soul, whatever. She wasn't a great person, man. She was very self-indulged. She was very loud, boisterous. And I love my wife. She has a lot of those characteristics. You know what I mean? She's not self-centered, but she can be loud. She's very opinionated. You know what I mean? And so at 22 years old and at 30 years old, when I met her biological parents, I'm like, well, I see a lot more characteristics of her, you know what I mean, with her biological parents than with her adopted parents, you know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. What do you think, Ty?
Yeah, well, my background and my upbringing is pretty much a testament to more of a kind of a nature type of explanation, because I had a really good childhood. I grew up with everything I needed and most of what I wanted, right? Yeah, my dad was hard on me, and my grandpa was a very strong, manly individual, and I got my ass beat a lot, but but I was also a very ornery child as well. So, I mean, yeah, there's been plenty of, data and scientific studies that have shown percentages and the likelihood, when it comes to genetic predisposition, as far as whether someone's going to have substance abuse problems or not, right? And, there was a lot of similar, single nucleotide morphisms that have been found in adults and younger adults with substance abuse issues. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely a correlation between genetic predisposition and substance abuse, right?
Yeah.
But there's also a very strong influence on the latter portion of it, where someone's morals and social status, and even as far as down the line as like financial situations growing up, and the environment they're in, as far as the actual neighborhood they live in. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of factors that can influence or quote unquote encourage that kind of behavior. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? There's more than definitely a link between hereditary substance abuse, but you can't ignore the other nurture portion of it either, because if you look at the nurturing standpoint from my life, there's no way if someone was betting their bottom dollar that they'd be like, oh yeah, this dude's gonna grow up and be a fucking alcoholic or a fucking drug addict, right? You would have lost every time, right? So that, and then comparing my sister to me, right? Very smart, very ambitious, both of us, but I happened to pull on that other straw, and I had my own struggles, growing up into young adulthood. So I mean, it's a debate for a reason, because there's definitely controversial kind of data or opinions
Yeah.
that would support both. So I mean, I feel like they definitely both have their place in the outcome or the conversation in general.
Well,
It's
there's there is a whole study. It's called epigenetics, and it's basically how your environment and your situation can basically it doesn't mutate your DNA sequence, but it basically it changes the way that your DNA reads situations. So it's the same thing. You know what I mean? You're still the whole nurture portion of it. I think it can still absolutely, you can change. You know what I mean? Like it's still my dad was a fucking alcoholic, man. Like he was a very functioning, successful alcoholic, and it never brought booze home, but like that's always been kind of like, addiction has obviously been in my family. You know what I mean? And for any addicts that are out there, like epigenetics, you can get away from that. Like you can you can round how your body reacts to certain situations. You can round how you handle things. But I think at the end of the day, it's your body's reacting to a certain situation, but at your core, you're still who you are. You know what I mean?
percent. And you know, there have been certain situations in human biology, animal biology, to where outside factors or influences have caused genetic drift and people's genes to be altered, and
Yeah.
so on and
Well,
so
fucking
forth.
Darwinism. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, it's a basic human evolution as well, and it comes down, but I think really a main point to kind of point out throughout this whole conversation is whether you can put your finger on it or not, right? Just as long as we're not bringing on or accepting this victim mentality of, oh, well, I was born this way, or well, if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't be this, right? I
yeah.
mean, that's a good point, I think, that we kind of need to touch on as well, because, whether you're a friggin' genetic scientist or not, how is this affecting your life and your families around you, right?
Yeah.
Because for a long time, someone could point the finger at one or the other, right? Well, it was my
I was born that
upbringing,
way. Or
or
yeah.
hey, my mom and dad was an alcoholic and an addict. I mean, 100%. I'm not saying there's no validity in that statement, but how are we going to move past this, and how are we going to, live our life in a, way,
Yeah.
right?
I heard a guy say one time, if you were stabbed in the neck or you were bleeding out, you wouldn't sit there and go, I wonder how I got this cut. Did it come from this, or maybe it was that? You'd just be like, how can I fix it?
How can I fix it?
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of the point. Is we
Yeah.
can sit there and say, oh, this happened, or that happened, or this happened, or this is why, or maybe this is why, or we can focus on how to move it in a direction. And once we take responsibility for whatever it is,
Yep.
there's a
Mm-hmm.
freedom that comes from that.
Yeah, you
Oh,
better
absolutely.
get that cut stitched up.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
I mean, theoretically, yeah, hypothetically, yeah, you stitch up the cut, you stitch up the wound. No, that's a good direction to move this into. It's like I was laughing with you guys. So my wife and I kind of had a knockdown drag out fight last night over all this, because she does not like being referred to or as her biological mom. You know what I mean? Again, with all due respect, I don't talk badly about the deceased, but again, Stephanie was not a great person. I don't mind saying it. I've said it. We lived it. Like, but there's still traits that come along that, like, things will happen. and it pops up and I'm like, I fucking see Stephanie like all in this. You know what I mean? But like I told her this morning when we were kind of talking and like smoothing things over, I'm like, there's a difference though, because you've taken the steps to understand and realize the portions of Stephanie's life and who she was that you didn't like. You know what I mean? And you've worked to fix those. Tyler, you were a drug addict.
Uh-oh. Lost you, bud. Give me 1 second here.
That's all right. No one's coming in your house.
How do I mute it? You gonna mute me real quick? Yeah. Sure.
Can't hear you either, Chris. Nothing.
Josh, Still fucking.
That's great. Packages getting dropped off for Christmas.
Yeah, I got some work being. So we got people kind of coming in. Yeah, I can't hear the tag. Yeah, it's downstairs. You can go around.
It's all right. We can cut, right? For some reason, your audio isn't coming through, Chris.
Yeah, I think you muted yourself too, bud.
No.
Mm-mm.
Nothing.
I ruined it all, dude.
No, it's fine. This makes it better, dude. Because I get anxiety over these little things, and then when like other people have regular people shit happening, it makes me feel a little bit better. It, like relaxes the mood a little, you know.
All right, can you hear me
Right.
now?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I bumped Tyler. Your dog was barking, and then I bumped my mic, and I don't know what the hell
that's my
happened.
An old guard Rambo.
But so going back to what I was saying, like when I was trying to explain, because she got bent out of shape about it, and I understand where she would get bent out of shape about it. I wouldn't want to be called out on. I don't like being called out on my faults or like things that you know what I mean, my character defects or anything like that. But like I explained to her, I'm like, but you were smart enough to witness or smart enough to understand the parts of Stephanie that you didn't like, and you've changed it. So like Gary, Tyler, me,
Yeah.
like we were drug addicts, we were whatever. We recognize, and that goes for any addict, alcoholic, whatever. Anybody that's been to prison and come home, there's a reason you went to prison. There's a reason you were an addict. You work on those character defects, you fix them. You know what I mean? And then you live a successful, productive life. So I do think that like the whole nurture portion of it definitely comes into play. And I do think that, like Gary said, if you're stabbed in the neck and there's an issue, you don't sit there and look at, well, that's, you know what I mean? It is, you're not going to, you want to figure out a way to fix it. Like that's, and I think that's where the nurture portion of it all comes in. Gary, so you're dealing with a lot of people. I mean, you're dealing with a lot of women that are in recovery. How often are you like sitting down and talking to them? I think you do some sort of IOP work with them, correct?
Not directly with them, but I'm on the phone with them a lot. And then I'm also like, if they're at the center and they're in a situation that maybe needs de-escalation,
Yeah.
I'm like a safe person they can call
Oh,
and talk to. That's not a counselor or not somebody that's, directly involved in their treatment.
Yeah.
So they feel a little bit more open to talk to me. And I do notice, just like with even myself when I was struggling, our struggles usually come from not being able to take responsibility for ourselves.
Yeah.
And however, when you're in the trap house or you're in the hood or you're in those kinds of environments, without a good foundation, you can want to be responsible for yourself all you want. It's going to be hard to start to heal.
Yeah.
So whenever you get in there's that old, I'm sure you guys have heard of it, that they did that experiment with the rats or the mice, and they put cocaine in their water bottles. And they had at first they had a set of them that were in like isolated cages with like dingy newspaper for bedding and like no other mice to associate with or no like colorful anything. And they would go to the bottle until they died. And then they put the same bottle and a water bottle in a city of mice, and there was like colorful toys to play with
Yeah.
and nice fresh bedding, and those mice would occasionally go over to the bottle, but they didn't end up getting hooked on it. And I think that's kind of goes along with the nurture thing and the environments that we end up in
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
actually so I remember reading about that study. That's actually that's a good point. So I was online looking for instances of nurture over nature. So I'm glad you brought that up because I absolutely think that your environment plays a huge role in your happiness, how happy you are with your life, whether you're fulfilled, whether you're living a purposeful life. And when you're put into an environment with people that love you, care about you, things like that, you're not going to go back to the drugs. You know what I mean? And it's also the nature comes into play, and there's that whole addiction in your DNA sequence. You know what I mean? Like that's part of who you are too. No, that was a cool study. I forgot about that. And I'm glad you brought it up
Yeah.
because like I said, I was looking for some instances of nurture over nature. So yeah, I don't know. I know this was kind of like a short-ended or a short-handed topic. I don't know. I don't. Is there another direction you guys want to go with it?
I mean, I think it's, worth kind of pointing this back in the direction of which I'm sure Gary has in all of our personal experiences, not only professionally, but personally, right? How do we not fixate on this to the point where it's hindering our ability to recover? You know what I mean? Just kind of going back to what I said previously, as far as trying to be a little too analytical about it and having it hold anyone back from actually healing, right? Because at the end of the day, no matter what you're, and don't get me wrong, I obviously can't attest to some people's situations that had an absolutely abysmal upbringing and, they grew up in an absolute terrible area but I would like to think, right. And excuse me for assuming, but where we're at and where we go, even if one person only has a slight chance or a slight choice to someone that has a lot more resources available, you could pull yourself from wherever you have been and whatever circumstances you were brought up in, right?
Well,
And like kind of goes back to taking that victim mentality, right?
yeah. Well, it's
Uh,
accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's certain things to where what you have to do or what are you doing to get out of these situations, right? Because that was a really big component of my life is pointing the finger, you know.
Oh yeah.
That was a huge kind of setback for me and once again, I kind of took a more of a 12-step route, you know what I
Same.
mean? Which really kind of, and one of the biggest blessings I received from that was seeing what part I had in everything. I mean, that was a major psychic change took place when I realized, like, holy shit,
Well, it's
like,
accountability, man, and I think accountability is literally. I mean, that's one of the. So if you're not willing to take ownership of your problems and your issues and recognize you have a problem, then obviously there's no help for you because you're constantly going to have that victim mentality. And whether it's
can't come up with a solution if you don't know there's a problem.
Right.
whether it's mental health, whether it's coming home from prison, whether it's addiction, whether it's you're just in a fucked up situation and you want out, you have to recognize, hey, I'm not good. You know what I mean? Like we got to make a change. I saw this is a little bit off topic. I watched a video last week, and it was where this guy correlates depression to actually being you're actually in a state of compression. So that's your body's like physiological response. It's telling you, hey, shit's not good. I got to make a change. You know what I mean? And I understand depression can be like. I understand there's like chemical imbalances in certain people, but a lot of depression comes with you have seasonal affective disorders. So like this time of year, I always get like down in the dumps when the weather goes to shit. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different things that like your body's telling you, I got to make a change. You know what I mean? And if you're not willing to be accountable and recognize those things and say, hey, I gotta put boots on the ground, then nothing's going to change. And I think that's where nurture can come into play. I mean, you can fall back on the good environment, the good things that you have, but you also have to recognize that's still in your DNA. But accountability is, I think that's the building block of everything, is not pointing fingers at situations, people, circumstances, things like that. It's saying, I'm the problem. I have the problem. I can change it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100%. And it's a really good point, because I couldn't change anything until I took ownership and responsibility of a lot of the things that played out in my life. I was a really good self-saboteur, you know what I mean?
Well, I'll even say, not to interrupt you, Tyler, Gary, you went through a rough patch. It was just, so you and I have been friends going on, it's been about a year at this point, right? And
Yep.
I know over the summer, I was watching a lot of your Facebook posts. I think we talked once or twice, and you were like, you left your job or something, it wasn't a great environment, and we don't have to get into the details, but you just watching your posts and whatever, you recognized there was a problem, and you were like, and it wasn't relapsing. It wasn't, you know what I mean? You didn't go back to drinking or doing drugs, but there was an issue. You wanted to do something different. You recognized there's a problem, and you had to bail, jump ship, and go find something else.
Yeah. And that isn't always easy. I remember I was talking to my sponsor, because I do the AA 12-step thing as well. And everything seemed to be kind of shitty. And that point the finger thing, sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with us per se, but you can point the finger at something if you're willing to change that something.
Yeah.
If you're pointing the finger in a manner to identify a problem that you can therefore take accountability and change, that's a little different than just saying, well, it's this way because of this, and then just wallow in self-pity.
Yeah. I fell down that slope, dude. Right before I got into truck driving, man, the company I was with, I had a cushy job, man. Corner office, wet bar. It was huge. It was the biggest office in the building. I had 150 reports. I was king shit, and I let it go to my fucking head. I have no problem saying that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I got dude, I was so fucked up at that job, because I felt like I couldn't make change. I felt like everybody was against me, and it was the same thing. You know what I mean? I finally and I was pointing fingers. I'm like, no, I'm not getting support from the owners. I'm not getting support from my supervisors. You know what I mean? It's a you thing. And then it was literally 6 months after I started driving semi, I finally took accountability, and I was like, dude, you were the fucking problem. You know what I mean? The reason that job didn't work out, it was my fault. It wasn't. Yeah, I could point the finger and recognize there was issues, but I could have went about things way differently. You know what I mean? So yeah, you have to take accountability, man.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary. Go ahead.
I forget what I was to say. Oh, yeah, to finish the point, that my spiritual advisor or whatever, I was talking to him. I remember I was kind of in a place where I wanted to wig out. And I remember he got real quiet on the phone, and then he was like, I'm jealous of you, man. And I remember asking him, well, why are you jealous? What's there to be jealous of? I'm in this mess. I'm trying to fix this mess. I don't know what. And he's like, oh, you're just about to get real spiritual. That's all.
Yeah.
And I was like, I couldn't comprehend what he was saying in the moment. But now on the other side of that, after, I spent some time in meditation, spent some time figuring out where I was responsible for certain things, spent some time figuring out where I wasn't responsible and just had to let certain things go. On the other side of all that was a period of growth. And I remember, Chris, you and I were talking about how you went through a similar period in life.
Yeah.
And it felt like it was a terrible time, but really it was just a growing pain.
It's so funny, man, because there was just a guy, he's not a good friend. He's a friend of a friend. I'm not going to mention his name. He posted something on Facebook literally while I was in the lobby waiting on you guys. And dude, it's so funny because I laugh with my wife. I'm like, I could sit here. I could be the Dr. Phil of fucking everything. I could tell you, Gary, and you, Tyler, everything you have to do to change your life and be better spiritually, mentally, physically. But then when obstacles are put in front of me, I don't want to fucking listen. I'm like the whole world's falling apart. It's I can't take my own advice. But the guy, he was like, I'm about to crash out. And I'm like, look, man, I'm like, you have to understand, the highs aren't the highs unless you have the fucking lows to fall back on. You're never going to grow if you don't experience some sort of difficulty in your life. You know what I mean? The lows are just as important as the highs. And it's so hard to remember that when you're when you're going through the process. It's so hard to fucking like sit back and just be like, dude, I need these lows or else the highs aren't going to be the highs. You know what I mean? It's part of the process, and that's where growth happens.
Yeah. And I got into a position where I needed to be under a great deal of pain before I even took a look at anything, right? And nowadays I've been blessed to where I can, instead of putting my waders on and wading in the shit, I can kind of confront things head on, and not be neglectful and bury my head in the sand, because I was really good at doing that too, right? Yeah. And it really comes down to a lot of perspective as well. You know what I mean? Because I'm fallible. I'm not perfect, right? Those defects and those shortcomings, that I've experienced throughout my life still rear their head at times, right? But what am I doing to kind of keep those monsters at bay? Is really what it comes back to. And so when my perspective changed as well, right? Because nowadays my problems look a little different than they used to be, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
My problems 10 years ago were, someone, could universally, say that it was a problem, right? But, nowadays, sometimes, I make mountains out of molehills, right? There's this, the really big things, I handle gracefully, right? Like, a death in the family, or someone's going through something pretty traumatic. I come in, with my little, Harry Potter wand, and they're like, oh man, how did you handle that? But then, someone puts the spatula away in the wrong spot and I fucking lose my shit.
I'm the same
What I mean?
way, dude. I'm the same fucking way.
Yeah.
It's what I like to call, the 24 karat problems, right? So my problems nowadays, it's a lot circumstantial, a lot of perspective, right? 10 years ago, if I would have looked at one of my problems I had today, I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You're tripping about that, right?
Tripping about a spatula in the wrong drawer.
Yeah. And it's crazy how the mind works, because 10 years ago, I was worried about where I was going to sleep at night. And now I'm like, oh man, what am I going to make for dinner? Holy shit, the world's about to end, right? I mean, not literally, but it's kind of a relative comparison, and it's just crazy how when you apply yourself in your mind and really shift your perspective about how a lot of those things that you worry about, even if someone's getting tripped up on this conversation that we're having right now, because I know there's people out there, because I was one of them, that was like, well, why is this happening? Why am I like this? Is it my dad's fault? Is it my mom's fault? Is it, my uncle fucking Randy's fault, who was a drunk? I mean, you never, and because I'm more so kind of an intellectual person, so I'm trying to break down the data.
Well,
I'm like,
you're logical.
what are the percentages here? Or why am I really struggling with this? But until I let all that go and put faith into something else besides the way I wanted to do things, right? There's resources, available, whether it's 12 steps, social workers, outreach programs. And, you have to learn how to lean on these kinds of things to get a second opinion or to get an outside perspective, which makes perfect sense to me, Gary, like kind of the position you put in sometimes. You're involved, but you're not directly involved in something. So someone's more likely to reach out to you to maybe go over some shit that they're tripping on or that they're struggling with. You know what I mean? Because me being a man and a rather self-sufficient ones, at least nowadays, right? It's hard to ask for help sometimes.
Well, it's a biblical thing. It's a biblical, like I've heard it in the church time and time again, and it's iron sharpens iron. You know what I mean? Like I have a really great group of guys. Like it's not a big group, but I have a solid group of men that I could call at any point in time. Gary, Tyler, like, you know what I mean? Yonk, I've got a couple other guys. I know I could call you guys at any point in time and be like, hey, I'm having a fuck day. Life is fucked off right now. My wife put the spatula in the wrong fucking drawer and I'm about to choke her the fuck out. You know what I mean? But I know I could call you guys and it's vice versa. I've got guys, and that's the one thing, man, that I love about being in the truck is I got guys that will call me and we'll rap for a fucking hour because they're going through some shit. We can bounce things off each other. My cousin's a prime example, man. We talk once a week for like an hour on the phone, and it's whatever shit he's going through in his life, he brings to the table. Whatever shit I'm going through, there's no judgment. We don't talk about it with anybody else, but it's put out on the table and it's out there. You know what I mean? We got it off our fucking chest. And when I'm acting like an idiot, and I'll tell you, man, Tyler, you're married. Gary, I know you're single, but I mean, that's one thing that I love about my fucking wife is my wife will hold me accountable too. It pisses me off out of all the, I think you said it the last time we were doing a podcast, Tyler. You're like, I could take criticism from anybody, but when it comes from my fucking wife, it makes me want to scream. And I'm the same way, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Like sometimes the one person that you live with has to be the person that's telling you, dude, you're being a fucking idiot, you know?
So
have those people.
I don't have a wife, but I have a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old.
Oh yeah, they'll hold you accountable too.
And yeah, and when they do that, it's I don't know if it has to be similar because I feel like I'm the head of the house and I'm the provider and I'm the guy that's handling all the things. So when they're calling me out on my shit, and it's usually very insightful. It's usually some stuff that I need to listen to, and it helps me grow.
Yeah.
But when it's coming out of their mouth, I'm like,
shut up.
Yeah, like quit playing, bro. Go clean your room. Get out of my face.
My kids are the same way, man. My kids will 100. My daughter, especially, man. My daughter, man, she'll call me out on my shit immediately. But yeah, I mean, you need that in your life. You need people that are going to hold you accountable. Otherwise, you're never going to get anywhere. So, no, it's 100%. Funny.
Yeah, man.
So.
Yeah, you gotta love those kids, you know. Even sometimes, you know, my 12-year-old, he's wise beyond his years, you know, and sometimes when he's not talking about poops and fart jokes and stuff, he'll hit me with a little nugget. Sometimes I'm like, wait a minute, did that just come out of your mouth? You know what I mean?
Flynn does that too.
And once again, just like, yeah, my man, don't you got something to do or something, you know? And then I'll kind of sit there and be like, damn, you know, like. That's true. You know, it's, you know, family dynamic, you know, kind of pointing the finger at that, you know, it's a very, very influential and powerful thing, you know, but you know, two friends, you know, very close friends, like you mentioned, Tack, you know, it's, you know, you have to try to put those pieces in place and put those people around you that are going to call you out on your shit, you know, because if you got a bunch of people that are co-signing your delusions or your your perspective, you're not going to grow, you know, and you're going to stay in that rut, you know. So
yeah, and my wife,
I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, I wouldn't either. You know? My wife and I have had this conversation time and time again. I'm like, I don't need 100 people to be like to pat me on the back and tell me I'm doing a good job. I need 5, 6 dudes that are going to be like, hey, dude, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And I have that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of my success comes from too, is they'll see me post something online and immediately they're calling, dude, what's going on? What are you doing? You know what I mean? Or we're talking on the phone and it's accountability, dude. You have to hold yourself accountable for your actions, but the more people you surround yourself with that are going to be open, honest, truthful with you, that have solid morals and that are making progress. I don't fuck with people that aren't on an upward trajectory. That's like rule number 1 in my fucking book. Like if you're not making progress and you're not a decent fucking human, I'll rap with you. Like we could sit down and have a conversation. I'm never going to fucking turn my back on anybody. You're not going to be part of my circle. You know what I mean? Right. Like I love you. I love you at arm's length because you're not going to drag me down. I'm not going to feed into your bullshit. If you need the pats on the back, I'm not the guy, dude. You know?
Yeah, equally as important, right? Not only do you got to put those pieces in place and have those strong, you know, people around you, but you also need to do the same as far as keeping people at arm's length. You know what I mean? You watch who you're letting into your life, like, you know, just as important as.
Well, I learned a long time ago, man.
Who you're putting out.
I love hard, dude. I have I know for a fact, like I get. Whether it's a friendship, whether it's a relationship, I get attached very quick and not to sound like fucking gay about it or anything, but like, dude, when you and I get off the phone, it's, hey, I love you, bro. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have a problem telling my homies that I love them. You know what I mean? I fucking love good people. Like, because good people are a necessity to grow. Like, they're a necessity for progress, you know? And so when I have my circle of fucking good-ass dudes around, I don't give a fuck. I'll hug them. I love you. You know what I mean? I love hard, dude. I don't know if it's a defect. I don't think it is. But I've also learned in the past, I will get attached to the wrong fucking people and I'll love them hard and then I get hurt too. You know what I mean? So that's what I said. I would rather have 5 people, a small circle of dudes that are on an upward trajectory that we can have a great relationship. They're going to hold me accountable. I'm going to hold them accountable. Than have 100 people that are just like in the background cheerleaders, like, yeah, you're doing great. Yeah, fuck yeah. And then I fuck up and they're like, hey, it's okay. It's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That's why we got to be careful with like social media, because social media will always validate you,
yeah,
but it's not real. It's
right.
like, it's great for like promoting things and like contacting somebody you're having a hard time reaching, or there's a lot of benefits to social media, but the downside of it is it'll feed your delusions
Yeah.
Yeah, I stayed off of it for 3 years.
and change your life getting off of there, didn't it?
Maybe even
Yeah.
longer. And the only reason I even got back on was because Tack and a couple of my buddies started a little stock group, and then I think
Good old AMC. Good old
Yeah.
AMC.
Yankee took me, he was like, oh man, yeah, to have Messenger, you need to have Facebook. And
Yeah. That's how they get you back in. That's how they wrote.
I stayed off it for years.
Well, dude, I'll be honest with you. Like, so Gary, Tyler and I didn't know each other growing up. Tyler and I were bunkies in county jail. Like that's how I met Tyler. And when I came home, like we spoke a little bit here and there. I think when I had come home from prison, I think Tyler, you were still struggling a little bit, if I recall. And then you and I lost contact forever. And Crawford, I remember it was right around the time he created that stock group, and you popped in, and I was like, hold the fuck on. I was like, is that Ty G? Like, is that my fucking rookie? And then we linked back up, dude. And it's funny because one of my other best friends that I could call whenever, Nick fucking Medhurst, dude. We did our whole bid together down at Lake Erie Correctional, and he's another dude that I could call. He's gonna be like, dude, you're a fucking idiot if I'm being a fucking idiot, but he'll also, I love you, like, you know what I mean? I have found some of my closest friends being locked up, and those dudes have gone through the struggle. They've been on an upward trajectory since they fucking came home. You know what I mean? No, it's cool. But yeah, that's funny. I remember we showed up to that Christmas dinner, and that was the first time I got to hang out with you since you had gotten your life like moving and I got my life moving, and then we just linked up and we've been fucking like best friends ever since. So, and Ty, I'll be honest with you, man. I appreciate you because out of all my friends, I think you will hold me more accountable than most people will. You know what I mean? Like you're not afraid to like step over that line and be like, hey, dude, like what that might. Dude, a prime example is the last podcast we did about the unconventional recovery, sobriety. I got to tell everybody, and I'm going to even apologize to you guys. I should have never used the word sobriety. And for anybody listening, I should have used unconventional recovery because sobriety is sobriety. You know what I mean? I pissed a lot of people off using that, like saying that. And I have no problem catching flack because like I made a post afterwards apologizing. And to anybody listening, again, my whole purpose of this is not to get impressions, it's not to get clicks, it's not to get likes. I love people. Like I genuinely in my heart, I know where my heart's at. I just want to help people, you know? And sitting back and reflecting on that, again, anybody listening, I apologize. I should have used the term unconventional recovery, not sobriety. But again, you came on. But I mean, you came on and I had you on for a reason because Yonk's Cali sober. You know what I mean? He still smokes weed. I still go out and have a few beers here and there. So no, I'm not sober. You know, Yonk's technically not sober, but I still think that I'm in recovery. You know what I mean?
100%.
I'm still recovering. I'm still working upward. I'm still working on being a better person on a daily basis. You know what I mean? So
yeah, you're definitely in recovery. If you can look back over your life and see continual improvement and not going back to, the joint or, full blown addiction, that's recovery 100%. Some of us aren't able to do that. That's the thing where like sobriety is still an important thing. And that's still why that word can be kind of sacred because for some of us, it's dangerous not to be all the way sober.
And another really great guy, and he's the one that really jumped my shit on that reel that I put up. His name's Jared Chris, man, and he was there for me when I was at my lowest right before I went to prison. He was there when I came home from prison, picking me up, taking me to meetings, taking me to breakfast, taking me to lunch, dinner. I had nothing. I was fucking like on my ass, you know? And he made the comment, he was like, you're hurting people more than you realize by saying unconventional sobriety. And so I kind of like sat back and thought about it. And I even went back and changed some of the lines in the post that I made from sobriety to recovery, because I did feel bad afterwards. Because you guys are right, and Ty, you were right. Like sobriety's not a it's not a kind of here or kind of there thing. You're either fucking sober or you're not, you know. But recovery, like you're always recovering. Like you're still in recovery. You're in recovery, Gary, Tyler, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah. Now that I got that off my chest, because I felt fucking bad about that, because I never want anybody to think, and my fucking little brother's a prime example, dude. And I talked about it last time. He fucking called, and I said this last time. He called me like 3 weeks into being at this halfway house, and the first thing he said is, I can't wait to be like you, where I can still go out and have a beer. And I'm like, motherfucker, you don't act right when you drink. Like you can't go have a beer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that was kind of the light bulb. I'm like, dude, maybe don't use the term sobriety. So
Right on. I have a friend that's not in recovery, not in sobriety, none of the things. I mean, his life is, he's a functional alcoholic.
yeah.
He takes care of his kids. He does okay, but he's not moving forward. He's not moving backwards. He's just kind of one spot, but a good guy. And he was playing, him and my stepdad were playing in the same band, and they were this was probably, I don't know, 5 years ago. And they were playing at the Main Street Saloon in Akron. And I was like, Eric, you think I could probably like drink a beer, right? And he looked at me and he's like, when have you ever been able to just drink a beer and be all right, bro?
Yeah.
Like, no, don't do it. Just don't do it. Like, hang out, watch the show, get some French fries and stuff. Just don't mess around. So, like, there's people outside of sobriety that can still recognize some of us if they know us and know that we're like really alcoholics or really drug addicts.
Yeah.
And some of us are hard drinkers, and we're able to, maintain and grow and recover and keep doing well. Like, and I'd say you're one of those, Chris, because you keep moving up in life instead of going backwards.
Well,
Where if me or Ty did it, we'd fall on our face.
Yeah. Well, again, and like Ty, me and Yonk talked about last time, if there's consequences, if I'm unhappy with my life, if I'm in a rut and then I'm going to drink, then it's a fucking problem. You know what I mean? Last night, we went up to Cleveland. We watched A Killer's Confession. I had, I think, 2 drinks while I was up there. It's not impeding my life. You know what I mean? Health-wise, maybe a little bit, but I also I work out like a fucking animal. Like, you know what I mean? So it is what it is. Like I said, I think recovery is more of a loosely based term. I'm in recovery. I've never claimed to be fucking sober, nor would I. You know?
Yeah. On the flip side of that too, I mean, I've had, dozens of people in my life that don't have any, substance abuse issues or not yet, right, or whatever, and they're like, "Damn, dude, like, it's a more of a manual for living as well." You know what I mean? Because not to get too caught up on the actual substances themselves, but the underlying issue really relied, inside of me, right?
Yeah, it's a heart problem.
Yeah, and perspective issue. And once I started making a lot of these changes and really kind of hitting on all cylinders, I guess you could say, there's people that don't have issues that could they're like, damn, dude, I could use whatever water you're drinking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it just goes to show you this isn't just a substance abuse or liquid powder pill, whatever form you want to put it in, right? It's a design for living and just becoming a better person in general.
Well, that was one of the main things that I loved about my last job as an ops manager is I had 150 indirect reports that I could go out on the floor with and shoot the shit with. A lot of them had problems, and a lot of them weren't drug problems. A lot of them were just kind of stuck in a rut. had no direction, had no motivation to do any better. And I would be on the floor constantly or have meetings in my office with people and be like, dude, you can do better. Like you're a hard worker. You know what I mean? You can do better than work in advanced poly for the rest of your life. And that was, dude, even with homeless people, like I'm out on the fucking road twice in the last 2 weeks. There's a homeless guy that stays at the Richmond, Indiana Planet Fitness. They live out back in a tent. His name's Dan. Then I stop every time because I pull my truck around the back so I can like fit it up by the building. So I always drive by their tent. It's him and his wife that live there. And I'll go out and I'll buy them groceries, but more so I sit and talk with them because people like that, they feel like nobody respects them, nobody appreciates them. You know what I mean? So and from what I understand, Dan's not a fucking drug addict. Now maybe he is, maybe he's bullshitting, but
right.
I enjoy talking to people, and there's a lot of people out there that have issues that they're just stuck in ruts and they don't know how to fix it. They don't have any direction. There's no purpose. They're not driven, and sometimes they just need like a little push. Drugs and alcohol aren't always the problem,
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, especially in the world we live in today.
What's that?
Mute me for a sec.
Okay. Go ahead, Gary.
Like the times we live in today, like it's typically if someone was homeless or like in that kind of situation, 9 times out of 10 it would be mental health or substance use. But nowadays, with rent being $1,500 a month for a 2-bedroom place, there's people that are just struggling to do it. Like just people that
there's all those videos on TikTok and Instagram and what I'm not on TikTok anymore, but like girls that are like in tears, guys that are in tears are like, how the fuck am I supposed to live? Dude, my daughter is talking about she's about to turn 18. She wants to get an apartment with her friend. I'm like, you have no fucking clue how expensive it is to live on your own. Like,
right.
You work in retail at the mall and you're going to be a cosmetologist. Now, cosmetologists make decent money, but I'm like, you have no fucking clue how expensive things are and what a struggle it is to live on your own anymore in like this day and age. Eggs are fucking $4 a dozen, bro. Like, like my grocery bill from feeding 5 people 4 years ago is the same as feeding myself and Mary and Flynn every other week. You know what I mean? It's time.
It's bananas.
Times are hard.
If I didn't have a landlord that's like a friend of mine, like he's an ex-employer of mine, really like a good friend.
Yeah.
If I didn't have him, dude, I don't know how I would take care of 3 kids by myself.
Yeah.
There's no way, because my rent's. I'm not going to talk about costs, but it's way more affordable than it should be.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for him, I don't know what we would do.
Yeah. No, it's wild,
crazy, man. And I want to buy a house, but then if you buy, it's supposed to be cheaper to buy, but it's not. So I'm like, I'll wait this out and see if the economy improves.
Well, no, it's not cheaper now because the housing market is it's gone. Inflation spiked the housing market just like everything else. Like it's dude,
Yeah.
my house is almost we've lived here 6 years and we just had it reappraised and it's the value of our house with just doing some internal work has spiked like almost $80,000, dude.
Well, that's good news, right?
For us, I mean, yeah, but I'm also looking at the back end. Like, even if we wanted to sell our house, I'm gonna have to go. I think we paid 127 for our house. Even if I wanted to go buy another house, I'm gonna have to spend $300,000 to get a house that like I want to move into, and I don't want that. I don't want like we live comfortably. Like you know what I mean? My wife makes good money, I make good money, and that's how we want to keep it. We're comfortable. Like we're not worrying about shit. I don't need a big house. But then I look at the flip side and I'm like, some of these fucking people, a lot of the people that worked underneath me at Advanced Poly, I looked at them and I'm like, how are you living on fucking $10-12 an hour, dude? Like,
it's bananas.
And they would come in upset and I'm like, dude, you could do better. Like, you're a hard worker. Go find a job that's going to pay you $20 an hour. Like, I can't give you $20 an hour. Like, it's not in it. I can't do it. I would love to give everybody that worked up there $20 an hour, but I can't. Like, but you're worth more than this. So go be more than this, But it's again, it's being a victim of circumstance, man. And that leads to drugs, it leads to alcohol, and it is what it is. If you're not willing to change your life, it's not just you're not gonna wake up one day and be a fucking millionaire.
But Right.
So I
Right.
want to be a millionaire.
It's like, this
I'll make a
sucks.
million.
What can I do different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
What? I'm trying to manifest it though. I wrote myself a check for several $1 million and I posted it for next year. So we'll see how that works
hell
out.
yeah. No, I like that though. I like that. Like that's people don't realize, man, like your life, whatever you speak into the universe, that's what the universe is going to give you back. Whatever you're telling yourself on a daily basis, that's your day. That's if I wake up in the
Yeah.
morning and I'm like, dude, today sucks. It's fucking Monday. Fuck this. I'm on the road. It's cold. That's my day is going to be cold. It's going to be a fucked up Monday and I'm going to be pissed off all day. You know what I mean? If I wake up smiling and I'm like, hey man, I got a good life. My wife loves me. My kids love me. Like life is fucking good. That's you're speaking it in the universe first thing. Your body's like your body hears what you're telling it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's always been a big thing for me too, man. The more because I am a very pessimistic person, dude. I am always the glass is fucking half empty, and that's been my biggest struggle. Is like just curbing that as soon as I wake up in the morning and being like, dude,
Yeah.
you got to take a minute, sit back, and be like, dude, everything's good. Your wife loves you, your kids love you, you have a great relationship with your whole family, your mom, like restored relationships, you have a good fucking job, you make good money, like we're good. Fucking woo,
Yeah.
you know? And the day's
Yeah.
better, dude. Like it's so fucking
Immediately.
it's so
Immediately
fucking
better.
stupid to think that like that little bit of just like sitting in my driver's seat, looking out the window and like taking a minute just to sit back, chill and be like, bro, life is fucking good. Relax. And like talk to yourself
Yeah.
about it for a couple minutes first thing in the morning. And it's fucking wild how starting your mornings with that little bit of like just positive self reinforcement with your coffee goes, dude.
It goes a long way.
It
It's
does.
like one of the 4 agreements is to be impeccable with your word.
Yeah.
And that means even your thoughts. So when I catch myself, and impeccable means without sin,
Yeah.
right? So like when I catch myself saying like, I could even be talking about like the design and the flooring. If I catch myself saying this is ugly or this sucks or that, I immediately try to shift that
Yeah.
somewhere else because your body, like you said, your body hears that as talking to yourself.
Yeah.
Always.
Always.
Even if you're gossiping about somebody else, your body hears it as you talking about you.
Yeah.
So every day I try to, everything's good. We're going to have a great day. And, problems come along. But then when the problems come along, it almost seems more of like a challenge or an adventure
Yeah.
than a problem,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and
So,
again, you're never going to be shit if you don't encounter adversity. Like that's just it is what it is, man. That's part of life. You're gonna hit way more lows in your life than you're ever gonna hit the highs. And it's a human being's nature to focus more on the negative. Like that's like your immediate response. In most people, when
yeah,
something negative happens, you start dwelling on it, you know? And so when you can it's literally just take a step back, sit, evaluate it, and fucking work through it in your mind and ask yourself, is this really that big of a deal? Can I change this? Like, you know what I mean? And that's been a big thing for me, man. Like that's been a huge game changer for me is just fucking woosah for a minute, you know?
yeah.
So
That's tricky sometimes. We're trying to juggle all the things to
yeah,
just be able to like, look, just pause,
yeah.
just pause. But that's a huge
And,
tool.
and I'll be honest, man, to be able to reflect, like I think you and I talked about this is, I can look back to, I went through a real rough spot 3 years ago before I got into truck driving. The first year of trucking was fucking awful because I went from being around 170 people every day to being around my pit bull and me in my truck that for fucking 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? And it was fucking
That
terrible.
was a blessing.
It was
Yeah.
a blessing. I still say to this day, me starting driving semi was the best fucking thing that I ever did because it made me learn to love myself. It made me learn to sit with myself. It made me learn to like think about everything. But I look back and I'm like, I reflect on like where my life was fucking 15 years ago. Dude, I'll tell you something, man. I think you saw the post. You liked it. I got to take my mom out for her birthday dinner the other never had pad thai. So I took her down to Crave or not Crave. Yeah, Crave in Akron. Took her to dinner, and then we went to that Flame Up. It's like a candle, like string quartet. Like they played it in a beautiful fucking church. And the whole night I'm sitting there thinking while I'm out, because I don't get to take my mom out that often. She takes care of my 99-year-old grandmother, like who is in bad
Right.
shape, you know? So me getting time with my mom is like scarce unless I'm
Yeah.
out there hanging out. And the whole night I'm sitting there thinking, and I'm like, dude, I'm like, I wonder if she's like thinking about 15 years ago. I was a fucking train wreck, dude. Like I was putting her through the ringer, man. And it was funny on the way back. I asked her, I said, so I reached over and grabbed her hand and I said, so 15 years ago, I said, did you ever think we would be in this spot? And dude, I was starting to like tear up because I'm thinking back and I'm like, on a day-to-day basis, I get caught in the vicious cycle of this is what's going on in life. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like my truck needed brakes or like stupid shit, and I can let that ruin my day very easily, but I don't take time. I try to take time and reflect who I was 15 years ago. You know what I mean? And how
Yeah.
much progress I've made. And that's another thing, man, to be able to sit back and be like, dude, I've come a long fucking way. Do I really have to be upset about this? Is this really a big deal? Like I'm not breaking into the rental property to sleep in front of like a wall heater for the night. You know what I mean? On the
Right.
floor, bundled up. Is this really a fucking issue? And then appreciate where you're at today.
Yeah, even in the low spots today, I can walk around and be like, all right, this son has a bed, that son has a bed, that son has a bed. There's something to eat in the
Yep.
refrigerator. Our heat's on. Like, and I know that seems like just for people that haven't been where we're at, that seems like normal stuff,
Yeah.
right? But for real, for people like, well, I'll speak for myself. For people like me, that's luxury.
Well, I'll tell you. So I
Yeah.
had one of my old employees on. Her name was Michelle King. She was 3 episodes back. I had finally gotten my company to allow me to extend second chances to like felons. You know what I mean? They didn't even know I was a convicted felon when they hired me. Like I worked there 10 years, and then when I got promoted into operations, then and I was trying to get people would say, I was trying to like get them to hire people with felonies, because I'm like, dude, you only pay these guys 10, 12 bucks an hour. Like nobody's coming to fucking work here, you know? But I had Michelle on, and we were talking about like celebrating the small victories, and she literally said, she was like, you gave me a second chance, and she was like, second chance allowed me to get a shitty ass apartment with a shitty ass car. You know, she was like, I didn't have shit, but she was like, to me, that was like driving a Lamborghini in Beverly Hills. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's the small victories. She was working her way back, and I'm so fucking proud of her, man. Like she worked her way up to supervisor, and then she was one of them that used to come into my office, and I'd be like, dude, you're better than this. Like go work somewhere else. But they promoted her to like a second shift supervisor, and then she ended up getting fed up and she left too. But I just love Michelle because it's one of those things, like you were a convicted felon too, and I was, and it makes me feel good because I was able to offer her an opportunity to improve her life. You know what I mean? So and then to watch her like grow, and we're still friends on Facebook, and she's just been on an upward trajectory, dude. It's a beautiful fucking thing, you know. And like she said, you have to celebrate the small victories, man. She was driving a beat up ass car, living in South Akron in an apartment with her kid.
Yep.
But to her, that was like driving a Lamborghini in Beverly Hills. She literally said that, you know. It was hers. She worked for it. She was proud of it, and it's cool, man. You gotta remember where you came from.
It's
I'm just getting my stuff together. I thought I was thrilled to be able to pay a bill.
Yeah.
You know, if you ask nowadays, I might have a different tune, you know, but I was, holy shit,
Hey, at least you got money to pay it these days.
they won't
dude.
stop coming.
Right.
I was like, man, I'm like fucking responsible.
Yeah.
And I'm like adulting, you know. I was like, this is awesome, you know. And yeah, dude. I mean that, and like when I had my last good run at this, right? You know, I could have went back to places that were comfortable. I had a place to go stay. You know what I mean? That was a safe environment. But I knew that I had to, you know, put my big boy pants on and do it on my own, right?
Yeah.
Because I could have went back to a couple different places that were, you know, quote unquote, you know, safe environments, but they also were ones that I've in the past became complacent at and content at. You know what I mean? So I had to say, no, you know, I'm doing this. I got to pull myself up on my own. And I really think that had a big part to play into where I am today, you know, is knowing when to kind of make that decision. Like, hey, like,
I have
It's getting past the fear.
yeah.
Getting past the fear. I've had my own place now for 5 years, which is bananas because I'm 40. But for like 10 years, I was in and out of like sober living homes and like friends, you know, unfinished basements or friends' couches, and I was paying them to stay there, and they were, like you said, safe places. They were good places, but I was already paying the bills because I would give them money for staying there or whatever. But I was afraid that as soon as I signed a lease, the gates of hell would open up and I would lose everything. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know what the feeling was, but that describes the fear that I
Yeah.
had. And then I talked to my mom and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm already paying people to stay. I might as well just go get my own place. And I remember when I got my own house, it felt like you said, that girl felt like she was driving a Lamborghini. I felt like I was walking into a mansion.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, the outlets are dangling out of the walls, the carpets are dingy,
It don't
but I
matter.
was like, dude, I just got my own house.
Yeah.
And that blew my mind. Like and since then I've learned that everything I ever want is directly on the other side of fear.
Yeah.
And there's still fear holding me back sometimes today. Like I wanna start owning properties and get my own business and all this stuff. And my sponsor said, well, you know how you know you're not ready? Because you haven't got past the fear yet.
Yeah.
When you know you're ready when you do it.
Well, there's
Like
yeah,
that's
there's an awesome. It's the Drive clothing company. I have the hat and I have the sweatshirt, and they both say "Comfort Kills." And I get so many,
yeah.
and I love wearing it because people look at it and they're like, "That's fucking cool," and I'm like, "Yeah, man." Like, you become complacent, you become comfortable. That's when shit starts falling apart, dude. Like, you got to stay ahead of fucking the game. You have to get past your fears. You have to understand that like comfort's not. You don't want to live in a comfortable place. Jordan Peterson talks about it. I don't know how fucking hip you guys are to Jordan Peterson, but he has a whole like I don't know episode about once you become complete, you don't want that life of being on the beach drinking margaritas all day. That's the one that that's the correlation that he makes because you're not going
It'll
to amount
kill
to
you.
shit. It'll kill you. You're like and the
Mhm.
people that do that are fucking miserable. You know. So
That's where I've experienced the most growth is when I'm uncomfortable.
yeah,
So I became accustomed to pushing myself constantly, and Tack, you can attest to this, and you've known kind of where I've been and what I've been doing, I don't stop,
yeah,
which is a double-edged sword, as well, because I don't want to become complacent or content, so it's like, what's next?
oh, you got to
What's
stay
next?
hungry, man.
What's
Like you
next?
got to,
What's next?
yeah,
And I just keep going and keep going, and it's kind of led me to where I'm at today, where you're catching me on a Monday that's not necessarily a holiday, and I'm sitting here talking to you guys, right?
yeah.
Because even 2 years ago, I'd have been out freaking, trying to learn fucking Latin or something right now because I'm in
I
downtime or something.
respect it though, bro.
And like I said, that's where the double-edged sword thing comes in because, like, dude, I've earned a little break, right? I deserve to relax and sit here and eat scrambled eggs and chicken sausage right now and have a chat with my buds and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, I have a hard time relaxing, because I'm like, oh, there's something I could be doing right now.
I'm
Oh,
the,
there's something,
I'm
I
the
could be
exact
doing
same
this.
way. And then I have this whole week off work, and like the whole time I started a list like 2 weeks ago of shit that I need to get done while I'm home. The podcast,
Which is good.
the repairs
Yeah.
around the house, and I'm the same way. But there's also it is at 42 years old. I'm also at a point where I can respect the progress that I've made and appreciate where I'm at. So like you. You're probably the hardest working fucking guy I know. I'm not, and that's not like trying to like pat you on the back or anything. Like I've said it to you 100 times. Like I watched you when I came home from prison. You were still fucking around with drugs, and I've literally, and this was after we were bunkies in jail, and I've watched you move from going from that portion of your life to owning your own fucking tree business, you know what I mean? And owning a beautiful home, getting married, doing fucking great things. But I know you're a fucking worker. But at 42 years old, I know the progress I've made, and it's a beautiful thing to be able to sit back and take a fucking week off work and just chill the fuck out, There's nothing wrong with like taking time for yourself, and I don't think that's necessarily becoming complacent. That's taking a fucking break. Everybody needs a break, dude.
Yeah, that's one thing I've constantly struggled with is me time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because I got, 5 kids, a wife, a business.
Yeah.
I'm a full-time student. I'm this, I'm that, I'm this.
I know.
When do you
And
sleep, bro? Sorry.
yeah, and I'm like, wait a minute, god damn, when's the last time I fucking did shit for myself? I'm like, god damn, and I'm still struggling with it to this day, and I'm really starting. this last year, dude, I've had a lot going on in my life, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into the gritty, but something happened to one of our family members. We had to take their kids for a year.
Yeah.
So I had 8 kids here, and had nothing to their name. And that was I got back from my honeymoon. I had 3 new kids in my house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this, this is the first year that the business has really, been full fledged, not just a side mission. And, dude, I mean, this last year, I definitely was coming on the verge of hitting a little burnout, wall.
Oh, I know. We had talked about it.
And I'm like, dude, I need to take some time. So I took a vacation for a month and sat on the beach and, you know what I mean? And just chilled. And it's dude,
there's nothing wrong with any of that, man.
yeah. I mean, you got to pay attention to that kind of stuff, man. Me especially, because I'm really good at trying to run myself fucking ragged.
I run myself. Mary was laughing at me last night. She pulled up a study about how bad it is to only get 5 hours of sleep a night, and like
that's every night.
Yeah. And I'm like, she showed that it was like an age progression, and it was like this woman, and she's like, she was like, this is why you're unhealthy. And I'm like, but I'm not unhealthy. I'm just fucking, you know what I mean? Like, the doctor says my thinker's good. Like,
this past 2 or 3 weeks, I've been getting consistent sleep, dude. You know what I mean? And it feels good, but and it's terrible, and I know it is, right? Because you know how I am with that mind, body, soul.
Yeah.
Which is going to be our next topic for next time.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, I know it's detrimental for me to, but when I was working for another company, I was working a 12-hour shift, 5-6 days a week, coming home, and I had homework assignments due. I was up till 3 in the morning, getting up at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and going to work the next day. Yeah. It's like, dude, that's not it.
No,
that's not it.
Hey guys, I gotta take this call. I got somebody.
Well, I know we're hitting an hour. I told Gary he's got to work today, so I told him we would wrap up after an hour. So
yeah,
we'll go ahead and just wrap it. I'll let you guys know when I get it posted. But thanks for coming on, guys. Again, Tyler, Gary, guys. If you want,
it's nice talking to you, Todd.
Yeah, you too, man.
And everybody, if you're watching, tune in on YouTube, like, subscribe. My wife just brought me some food, so I'm definitely getting off here. But love you guys. Later. Thanks for checking us out. We'll holler at you.
Love you too. Bye.
Later.
Hey, shit, he closed it. I don't know if his thing fully uploaded. No, that was cool. No, we'll totally do. If you want to do Mind, Body, and Soul, that would be a good one.
Yeah, man. I think it's a good topic, and we can get into kind of some of the things we do physically to help us mentally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Speaking of, I got to take my ass to the fucking gym today, dude. I've been slacking on that, man.
No, I'm still on my fucking hiatus, dude.
Yeah.
I climbed a bunch of trees the other day.
Fucking job is super physical. Like, I sit in a fucking, I know, but I sit in a fucking truck all day, dude. And again, like, I start sitting, man, and when I don't go to the fucking gym, my head gets wacky, dude. Like,
so you need that release.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, man, that fucking BPC is fucking working wonders.
Dude, fucking Gina's sister broke her leg bad, like months ago. Probably like middle of the year, maybe beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And I told her about that. She was like, well, fuck it, dude. Like, I'll try it, And dude, she fucking was back walking, doing everything she was doing in fucking 3.5 weeks.
I'm about 4 weeks into my cycle on it, dude. And yesterday, I was texting you guys yesterday. We were at, I think it was yesterday or the day before I was at the gym. Tyler, I haven't been able to lift a 45-pound dumbbell over my head laterally in fucking like probably 8 months, dude. My shoulder just kills. And I got in there. It's not crunching when I move. Now, I got to watch my range of motion. Like, if I go
mine's a little crunchy.
Yeah. If I go too far back, it'll still crunch and it'll still pinch. But, like, my range of motion, dude, fucking a month ago, I couldn't lift my arm up like this. It would fucking, it's like a pain that goes all the way through, dude. So I swear by that shit, man. And I've been taking, like, copious amounts of glucosamine and chondroitin. Like,
well, when she went back to the doctor, they were fucking shocked. They were like, I have never seen someone heal this fucking fast from that kind of break you had. You know what I mean? And she didn't really spill the beans, you know what I
No,
mean?
because
But
doctors get fucking weird about that.
well, not only that, but them motherfuckers, it ain't conventional medicine.
Yeah.
So they'd be like, oh, you shouldn't have did that.
No, my last doctor found out I was running tests and they kicked me out.
Yeah, I just don't, you know,
And I was being honest with them. It's not like they busted me. I literally went in and I was talking to the doctor. I'm like, hey, she was like, what all are you taking? What supplements? Because I was having the chest pains, which I'm still having, but she's like, what are you taking? And I'm like, testosterone and like some of these supplements here, there, and my blood pressure meds and whatever. And she was like, hold on. She was like, where are you getting the testosterone? I was like, it's from a fucking buddy. Like, I got a letter in the mail fucking 3 weeks later. Like, hey, we're not seeing you anymore.
yeah, and I told my doctor straight up too. I don't know if maybe what made the difference is I told him I was getting it from a doctor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe they, you know, didn't bark at me too much because of that. I don't know. But yeah, I told him too. It's like, you know, you know, but honestly, man, it's not a lot of their fucking
shit.
fault because it's
Fuck.
what's that?
All that just went on.